Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video on the Gooners and Gloves Podcast channel. In today's video, it's going to be the 59th Gooners and Gloves Podcast, and I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts and predictions for the Ennis versus Stanionis fight. This is going to be for the unified IBF and WBA Welterweight World Championships. This is a huge fight for the welterweight division, a massive unification, and a fight that I think is definitely going to be very entertaining. I'm looking forward to it. So I'm just going to kind of give my thoughts on who I think is going to win, how I think each fighter is going to fight, and just generally how I'm feeling about the fight. It's obviously very big. We've got the IBF title on the line held by Ennis, and then the WBA title held by Stanionis. So definitely a big fight, definitely one that I'm looking forward to, and a huge unification for the fight fans. These are always the sorts of fights that we want, the champions fighting the champions and the best fighting the best, and these are definitely two of, among the best in the welterweight division. So definitely a fight that I'm looking forward to. So pretty much let's just jump straight into it. So my prediction for this fight is Ennis by knockout / technical knockout, basically stoppage. I do think that Ennis can get the stoppage. Now admittedly, I was kind of going back and forth on this because Stanionis is so tough. I really was thinking, can Ennis get the knockout or the stoppage? But I don't know why, but I just have a feeling he's going to be able to pull off the stoppage, and I will get into it, into my prediction for why I think he'll win the fight. But something's just telling me that instead of the decision that everyone's going for, that he's going to get the stoppage. Obviously I may be wrong. Stanionis is certainly incredibly tough, and I don't think this is going to be an easy stoppage, but I just have a feeling that Ennis will pull off the stoppage. So we'll get into all of that in a minute. I'll get into exactly why I think he's going to win and why I think personally that he can get the stoppage in spite of a lot of people thinking that he can't. So first, I should start with the record. So Ennis's record is 33-0 with 29 knockouts. So obviously a vast difference in experience. As you can see, a massive difference in experience, and that's despite the fact that Ennis is actually 3 years younger. So it just goes to show, sometimes age doesn't matter. Ennis is the younger fighter, but has over twice the pro fights. Stanionis is 30 years old. I think Ennis is 27. So definitely an experience difference here in terms of fights. However, in terms of age, Stanionis actually has he's slightly older. So it just goes to show age doesn't always immediately mean experience, and as you can see, despite being 3 years older, he's got less than half of the fights. So Ennis's record 33-0 with 29 knockouts, and then Stanionis is 15-0 and 9 knockouts. So certainly not a bad record there as well, very solid record. Obviously, as you can imagine, Ennis has the massive advantage in terms of the knockouts as well, obviously 20 more knockouts. So all in all, the advantages are definitely in Ennis's favor, and there's no doubt that Ennis is the favorite for this fight. There's no doubt about that. I think we can all agree that he is the favorite. He's actually been named a very heavy favorite. It says minus 800, so huge. He's been named the very heavy favorite for this fight, and while we definitely shouldn't count Stanionis out, I do agree that Ennis is the favorite, and I've gone with Ennis to win. So pretty much let's get into why I think that Ennis could get the knockout / the technical knockout. Just to make it clear though, when I say knockout TKO, I mean it's going to be like a tough knockout, like stop. Let's just say stoppage. I think I just want to make it clear that it could be KO or TKO, but I think I'm just going to go with the general term stoppage for the rest of this video. So this is why I think that Ennis will stop Stanionis. But that being said, I don't think he'll stop him until late in the fight. I'm going to go with rounds, I think 9 to 12. That's when I think that Ennis can get the stoppage. Simply because, first of all, Stanionis is incredibly tough. There's no question about it. Stanionis is very, very durable, has a very durable defense, and is just known for making fights very difficult, dragging his opponents into brawls, and ultimately just making it a tough night's work. So I do think this is the sort of fight where Ennis is going to have to labor for the win. I do see this being one of those fights where it's going to be very laborious for Ennis, and definitely a tough process, and he's going to have to really have the patience to break Stanionis down. But that being said, I do think that Ennis will show up, and I do think between rounds 9 and 12, he will be able to get the stoppage. So, yeah. Okay, now, in terms of the fights, so one big thing already that we can mention with Ennis that I think he brings to this fight is his switch hitting. He's an incredible switch hitter. He can fight orthodox and southpaw. Obviously, orthodox is his traditional stance, but he's very good at fighting in the southpaw position as well, and I think that's something that he's going to make use of against Stanionis. Obviously, Stanionis hasn't got as much experience, hasn't been up against as many southpaws, so Ennis, I think, will definitely take advantage of that and will be switch hitting. I think he'll be going to southpaw as well, and I think that's definitely one place that I could see Stanionis Stanionis getting unstuck. Obviously, Stanionis, lower experience, hasn't been up against many southpaws, and certainly wouldn't have been up against many good switch hitters. So I do definitely think that's something that Ennis is going to use to his advantage. His switch hitting, definitely I see him being causing him a big problem with, because when he switches to southpaw, there's a whole bunch of new angles and a bunch of new different punches that Stanionis won't see coming, and I just think it's going to be very tough for him to be able to anticipate that, and I think that's something that Ennis is definitely going to use to his advantage. Obviously, Ennis's combination punching is fantastic. Definitely, Ennis has excellent combination punching, and in fact, for me, he's always had some really, really impressive combination punching, really good hand speed, and I think that's something that, again, Stanionis is going to struggle with. The combination punching from Ennis, I think, is really good, so that's something that I definitely think that will be difficult for Stanionis to deal with in this fight, and I think that Ennis is going to be able to put the pressure on with the combination punching, his hand speed as well, and to be honest, just his general speed. Ennis is definitely quite fast, and he's got fast hands, and I'm aware that his power hasn't quite been up to the standard recently in his last few performances, but that being said, power doesn't just go away, it is still there, and I'm sure that Ennis will, make full use of it. I mean, he does have 29 knockouts out of 33 wins, so definitely very heavy hands, and while in recent fights it hasn't quite been to the standard, I do think that Ennis's power will definitely show up on the night, and I do think that he could definitely cause some damage to Stanionis, sorry. So I think the main keys to victory for Ennis are going to be to cut the ring off, hit the body shots I think are going to be important. Obviously, Stanionis has such a durable defense, and it's just in general so tough, so if Ennis is able to really get the body combinations landing and really land the punches to the body, eventually Stanionis will start to drop his hands, because obviously when you get hit in the body, the air gets sucked out of your lungs, you start to get tired, your heart has to work harder, and then your arms become harder to keep up, and therefore they start to come down, and then obviously as your hands come down, that's when your face is exposed. So I think that's going to be very key for Ennis, is kind of cutting the ring off and throwing shots to the body. Obviously those body shots will help to tire Stanionis out and have him start dropping his hands, because as I mentioned before, he's very durable, he's got a great defense, and he's definitely somebody who can avoid punches. So I think if Ennis is able to tire him out with pressure, with cutting the ring off, and with throwing his combination punches, and also to be able to confuse him with the switch hitting, because I think the switch hitting can also be used to land some shots through the guard, because obviously when you switch to the orthodox, from orthodox to southpaw, all of a sudden your opponent is having to adopt a whole new defensive strategy, and is having to look out for some punches that they can't see coming. So definitely I think that's going to be key. But I think the main keys to victory for Ennis are going to be his hand speed, his combination punching, his switch hitting, body shots, and cutting off the ring. I think those 5 things are going to be crucial for Ennis in this fight, and I think if he's able to execute those, then I could see this being a stoppage for Ennis, as mentioned before, between rounds 9 and 12. The reason I'm going so late in the fight is simply because of how tough Stanionis is. He's not a difficult fighter to crack. He's got a great defense. Another thing that I think Stanionis does is he really likes to bring his opponents into brawls with him, and I think he's definitely very good at kind of making opponents sort of deviate from their game plan and just start brawling with him instead, which Stanionis thrives off of, because Stanionis is so great at counter punching and really good at throwing his own combinations. So I think that's something that Ennis is going to have to avoid, because in recent fights I do think that Ennis has kind of been dragged into brawls, because Ennis is definitely more of a boxer than a brawler, for sure. Ennis has got great technique, he's got really good fundamentals, he definitely has a clear understanding of the sweet science. However, there are times when opponents such as Chukajan, for example, were able to drag him into a brawl, and then when he started brawling rather than boxing, he definitely was getting tagged a lot more and was definitely getting hit a lot more. So that's something that Stanionis could use to his advantage. He could definitely try and goad Ennis into brawling with him, and then that's when Stanionis can get the counter punches landing and kind of get the other flurries going. And yeah, but mainly the counter punching. Stanionis is an excellent counter puncher, so that's definitely why he likes to drag his opponents into brawl and drag his opponents into deep waters. And this is why, for me, I believe this is going to be a very laboured win for Ennis. While I do think he's going to win, I think it's going to be quite a laboured stoppage. I think that some of the rounds are going to be tight. I think that Stanionis is going to also put his own pressure, is definitely going to defend really well. So for that reason, I could definitely see this being a very laboured and a very difficult stoppage win. But while a lot of people feel that Ennis will probably just get a laboured decision, I personally think it's actually going to be a stoppage. I think that he will be able to break Stanionis down. I think he'll do well at breaking him down. I think he'll be able to get through his defense, and obviously Ennis knows that this is a big stage and a good chance for him to kind of get his name back on the map, because as mentioned before, his power hasn't quite been there in recent fights, and it's definitely been a point of criticism he's been experiencing. So he'll definitely know that on a big stage like this, it's a great chance for him to get another stoppage, start to kind of get people respecting his power again, and ultimately just respecting him in the welterweight division. So for that reason, I do think that with enough pressure and body shots and cutting off the ring, switch hitting, etc., Ennis Ennis will be able to eventually stop Stanionis and break through his defense. So those are kind of the keys to victory for Ennis. In terms of Stanionis, obviously the counter punching is going to be massive. Ennis is so fast and so quick, and I would definitely say has the speed advantage, and so for that reason Stanionis can obviously neglect that speed advantage by throwing counter punches. Definitely that's how you negate the speed advantage. You throw counter punches, you time your opponent. As we know, timing can beat speed, so I think that's going to be crucial for Stanionis, is the counter punching. Kind of whenever Ennis is getting momentum, getting courage, cutting off the ring, if you could just throw a huge counter shot and kind of discourage Ennis, maybe, you know, try and get him off you a bit, and then pivot out of the corner, pivot out of the ropes, then I think that could definitely be very good for Stanionis. So definitely I think it's going to be crucial, the counter punching. As mentioned before, if he can bring Ennis into a brawl, I think that would definitely suit Stanionis. Stanionis, I'd say, is a bit more of a brawler and not so much the boxer. You know, he's definitely got good boxing fundamentals and technique, of course, but I do think he definitely likes to kind of bring his opponents into deep waters and really trade with them and stand toe to toe. So I think that's something that if he can bring Ennis into doing, then he could definitely take advantage of that, because obviously Ennis is much more a boxer and I think less of a brawler, and you know, he can go toe to toe, but it's not really his style. He likes to kind of move, you know, stick and move and hit and not get hit, and kind of follow the fundamentals of the sweet science. So I think that's gonna be another key to victory for Stanionis, is if he can bring Ennis into a brawl with him, kind of just really make it rugged, make it tough, maybe make it a bit dirty, etc., and really just kind of show Ennis no respect. So I think that's going to be very crucial for Stanionis. So those are kind of the two main keys to victory for Stanionis: the counter punching and the brawling sort of style. Body shots will also be important for Stanionis as well. In the same way that Ennis is going to want to hit Stanionis in the body to break down his defense, obviously Stanionis is going to want to hit Ennis in the body so he can stop the pressure, so he can stop Ennis having that speed, so he can try and get Ennis to drop his hands, and ultimately to make Ennis slower on his feet as well, because obviously Ennis has fantastic footwork. He's really good at moving around the ring, cutting it off, pivoting out of dangerous situations. So if Stanionis is able to get enough body shots landed and knock enough of the air from Ennis's lungs, then definitely Ennis will obviously be a lot slower. He won't be moving around the ring as much. He obviously won't be throwing as many punches, and that's when Stanionis can then really up the tempo, because that's another thing that Stanionis has. He's got a really good gas tank, really good conditioning, so just generally his durability. I think Stanionis' biggest strength in this fight is his durability. He's got a great defense, he can take a lot of shots, and obviously he's got really good stamina. And Ennis obviously is clearly got the advantage on both the speed and the boxing fundamentals, so he could definitely, you know, try and hit and not get hit, etc. But all in all, I think it's going to be an entertaining fight for the fans. Looking forward to seeing this one. This is a big fight for the welterweight division, and one of these two will be walking out with the IBF or the WBA, with both the IBF and the WBA welterweight world championships. So really looking forward to it, hoping we get an instant classic between these two. It definitely should be entertaining. For me personally, I think that Jaron Ennis will win by knockout and technical knockout. I think that his speed, his experience level, his higher knockout percentage, his ability to cut the ring off and switch hit and, you know, throw combinations together, I think all of those things will definitely be Stanionis' undoing. I think that Stanionis will make it tough at first. I think he'll do really well to resist the pressure from Ennis and come back with his own punches, but I just think in the end Ennis has the massive experience advantage, and I think that experience advantage will be able to get him through those difficult waters. We'll be able to kind of bring him to later in the fight when he's discouraged Stanionis, he's broken through his defense, and eventually he's able to finish him off. So that's my final prediction: Jaron Ennis by knockout or technical knockout, just by stoppage in general, within 12 rounds, and I'm going to go between rounds 9 and 12. And as mentioned before, Stanionis' keys to victory are going to be counter punching, trying to drag Ennis into a brawl, making it tough, making it rugged, and ultimately just taking it to Ennis, and ultimately just standing toe to toe with him. So that's kind of my final analysis of the fight. A very entertaining fight, one that I'm really looking forward to. Please let me know down below who you think is going to win this one. Obviously Stanionis is a massive underdog, but you just never know in boxing, so we'll see what happens. But for me personally, with Ennis's huge advantages and his experience advantage, I feel like I've got to go with Jaron Ennis. And while a lot of people think it's going to be decision and not knockout or technical knockout, I have a feeling that Ennis could pull off the knockout / the technical knockout. So for that reason, I have gone with the stoppage win. Might be wrong, we'll see, but I just have a feeling Ennis is really going to show out, put the pressure on, and get the knockouts / the technical knockout. So that does it for my prediction of the fight. It's I think going to be a really entertaining one. It's a big unification fight for the welterweight division. Shout out to Matchroom Boxing for putting this one on, and for both fighters, of course, stepping up and putting up not just their belts, but also their unbeaten records. Obviously they're 48-0 between them, and they've got 38 knockouts, so they're putting a lot on the line for us fans, and for that we should be grateful, and I'm very pleased. But that's going to do it with my prediction for the fight. Please let me know down below who you think is going to win and by what means. Let me know if you agree with my analysis or if you think someone else is going to win. And without further ado, I'll catch you guys with another podcast tomorrow. I've got Arsenal versus Brentford reaction coming out, so that will be the next podcast that I upload, which will be tomorrow. But for now, hope you guys enjoyed this one. One more thing, I just want to thank you guys massively for the support on the channel recently, especially for the support on the Arsenal versus Real Madrid reaction podcast. That thing has just been absolutely amazing. It's by far my best performing podcast. It's the fastest to ever reach both 100 and 200 views, so thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart. We're also getting closer and closer to the 100 subscriber milestone. We're currently on 86, so if you guys do want to help me hit 100 subscribers, then please like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications for more podcasts regularly, and I'll catch you guys in another podcast soon. Bye bye.